Welcome back. We are in the process of learning phenomenological analysis. We are talking about 5 existential themes that one can use when you are conducting your data analysis. We covered 2 existential themes. We covered about relationality, how we experience self and other around us. And we talked about the second existential, which is how we experience our body with reference to the phenomenon that we are investigating. So we covered lived body in our previous video. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about the third existential that Max Manen recommend, and that is how we experience space. So, lived space. How, as individuals, we experience space around us. Oftentimes we do not notice, but if we reflect on the spaces that we live in, these spaces around us where we spend our time and function, work, family, these spaces have certain meanings and association with us, and they influence our experience, and we can influence the overall experience being in that space. I can give you one example of my own experience being a professor here at University of North Florida. There are certain places on campus which have some, I would call it like the meaning of safe and nice spaces where I feel very calm, composed. So I often visit these spaces on campus. One space in particular, we call it Peace Garden. So this is a very beautiful Zen-like garden with herbal plants and trees where there are some hammocks as well, so you can go relax in that space. So this space on campus has certain meaning for me. There are other spaces on campus as well. There is a statue of Mahatma Gandhi on campus, Martin Luther King as well. Sometimes I go and sit in that space, look at these idols, think about, reflect on these 2 historical great leaders who shaped the history of humanity. So the idea is the space that we inhabit, we develop associations and meanings with the space. And that is why when we explore as a phenomenologist lived human experiences, we must focus on the space as well. The space is always intertwined with human experience. So that's the third existential that we need to focus on when we are doing our data analysis. So reflect on this space and ask yourself how space is experienced with regard to the phenomenon that we are investigating. How space is experienced with regard to the phenomenon that we are investigating. And space, as I said previously, may have different meanings in different contexts as well. For instance, let's take an example of a bedroom. A bedroom may have certain association of meanings for a person when the person is healthy. But the same bedroom, when the person is sick, may have different meanings. So the same space may have different meanings depending on the time and context. So that's another thing to keep in mind is about the virtual space as well. Virtual space or cyberspace. How we experience cyberspace versus normal space in our day-to-day life. Virtual space versus normal space. So how do we experience that? How these spaces shape our meaning, our experience, how what kind of meanings do we associate with different spaces, how these spaces influence our moods, how these spaces help us create new meanings. So as a phenomenologist, you want to explore these questions, reflect on these questions to develop a deeper understanding of the lived experience that you are investigating. Now let's take the same example that I have been taking, which is Black women faculty members' experiences in academia. So when you try to explore this phenomenon from the context of lived space, you may come up with reflections related to how Black women faculty are navigating spaces on campus. So how they feel, how they experience classrooms, how they experience the conference room, how they experience other departmental spaces on campus. Do they feel welcome? Do they feel safe? So these things will come up when we explore from lived space perspective. Another thing which might come up is feeling out of place. So the physical space within predominantly white institutions may feel unworldly or unfamiliar to Black female faculty members, reinforcing a sense of being out of place. The architecture, decor, and overall design of university spaces may reflect a history or culture that does not resonate with their personal or cultural experiences. This sense of spatial alienation can intensify feelings of marginalization or isolation. Further, if you keep exploring this existential, you may come up with themes such as a role of spaces in power and hierarchy. So academic spaces often reflect, they reinforce institutional power structures. Black female faculty members may find themselves in spaces where they are physically present but socially marginalized. For instance, in departmental meetings or university events, they may be seated at the periphery or feel a palpable sense of hierarchy where their voice is less valued or included. The way they are positioned, both physically and symbolically, within these spaces often reflects broader institutional dynamics of race, gender, or power. Women may also share about what are some places which are safe versus unsafe places on campus. What are some places where they experience a sense of safety versus not feeling so safe. They may also talk about how they experience in virtual spaces. If they are teaching, let's say, online classes, then what is their overall experience of a space versus when they are teaching offline classes. Also, there might be some themes related to the spaces of resistance and empowerment. So Black female faculty members may experience academic spaces as site of resistance and empowerment. They may reshape their office or classroom environments to reflect their cultural identity, values, and sense of belonging. By consciously curating their spaces through artwork, books, or decor, they may create spaces that affirm their presence and challenge the dominant cultural narrative within academia. So you see that the lived space is an important theme, motive that a phenomenologist can use to go deeper into those lived experiences. A lived experience always happens in a space. If any experience you think, every experience happen in a space. It could be a house, it could be a public space, it could be a jungle, it could be some space. So every experience happen in a space. And as a phenomenologist, when you focus on how the space is intertwined with human experience, we can get deeper meanings, deeper reflections of that phenomenon. I hope this explanation would have given you some ideas about how to use this existential of lived space when you are analyzing your phenomenological material. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again.